In a crucial game against the Kansas City Chiefs, the Las Vegas Raiders delivered their most explosive performance of the season. Both the offense and defense stepped up in a big way, showcasing a well-rounded effort that made the game stand out. As we review the game tape, it's clear that the Raiders' success came from some smart adjustments and a well-executed game plan on both sides of the ball. On offense, the Raiders faced a tough challenge. Unlike the previous two games, where their opponents lacked a specific strategy to shut them down, the Chiefs came into this game with a clear plan. Take away the quick passing game. In the past, the Raiders had been successful with short, quick throws that gained 4 to 5 yards on most plays. But Kansas City made sure to disrupt that rhythm from the start. They put pressure on rookie quarterback Aiden O'Connell, forcing him to adjust to a different style of play. The first two drives were rough for the Raiders' offense, as they couldn't get into any kind of rhythm. The Chiefs' defense was focused on stopping the quick throws, and for a while, it worked. But the Raiders didn't panic. They made a key adjustment at the start of the second quarter. Instead of sticking to their usual quick passes, they took a deep shot, successfully hitting wide receiver Jakobi Meyers for a 43-yard gain. This was a turning point in the game, as it showed the Raiders' ability to adapt and exploit what the Chiefs' defense was giving them. What was particularly impressive here was how the Raiders recognized the Chiefs' defensive approach and responded. Kansas City was playing aggressively underneath, trying to take away the short throws, so the Raiders decided to go over the top. They dialed up multiple deep shots, eventually racking up 250 yards on just 7 plays. This shift in strategy caught the Chiefs off guard, and the Raiders capitalized on it. One of the standout moments came from the play to Jakobi Meyers. On a critical 3rd and 3, most people expected the Raiders to try a quick, short pass. But instead, they went for the deep ball, and it paid off. This was a perfect example of the Raiders' ability to read the defense and adjust their play calling on the fly. What makes this adjustment so impressive is the contrast with the previous coaching staff. Under former offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels, the Raiders' offense often struggled with attacking defensive schemes effectively. But with Scott Turner now at the helm, there's a noticeable difference. Turner has a better understanding of defensive tendencies and how to exploit them. The play to Meyers was a prime example of this. The Chiefs' defense is one of the best in the league, known for mixing coverages and sending blitzes. But Turner and the Raiders were able to take advantage of the Chiefs' aggressive approach by recognizing their tendencies and countering with well-timed deep shots. In short, the Raiders' ability to adjust, attack the Chiefs' defense, and execute their plays was a major factor in their success in this game. The Raiders came out with a 2-by-2 tight formation, a setup that often signals they might run quick concepts like sticks or dragon routes. These types of plays are designed to get the ball out fast and gain a few yards. But in this game, the Raiders quickly shifted gears. As soon as they moved Jakobi Meyers, they recognized that the Chiefs were in a cover 4 defense, which is a zone defense typically designed to protect against deep throws. This recognition was key. Once Aiden O'Connell saw the coverage, he knew exactly what he was going to do. He gave Meyers a quick nod, signaling they were going for a deep shot. O'Connell stuck to the plan even though it was a risky move on 3rd and 3. Meyers ended up beating his cornerback, and O'Connell delivered a perfect throw. The result was a huge 43-yard gain, a play that showcased Scott Turner's growing ability as an offensive coordinator. Unlike the previous coaching staff, who often failed to read and exploit defensive schemes, Turner quickly adjusted to what the Chiefs were doing and called a play that took advantage of their defensive alignment. Watching this unfold on tape was a thing of beauty because it showed how far the Raiders have come under Turner. It's been a noticeable improvement from previous weeks. A lot of the struggles early in the season were due to poor play design and a lack of adjustments. But now, under Turner, the offense is showing a new level of sophistication. Aiden O'Connell, while still a rookie, is gaining confidence in reading defenses and taking shots downfield, something that wasn't happening earlier in the season. In comparison, Gardner Minshew, a quarterback for another team, might be better at making off-script plays. But O'Connell's ability to stay within rhythm and execute the offense has been a key difference. His arm strength, paired with his decision-making, gives the Raiders a chance to push the ball downfield, even when the Chiefs continue to play aggressively underneath. Surprisingly, the Chiefs stuck to their defensive approach throughout the game, which allowed the Raiders to hit multiple big plays. Another standout play was a beautiful 29-yard, one-handed catch by Brock Bowers. This play showed off another example of Scott Turner's offensive design. The Chiefs were in a match concept, where 4 defenders are responsible for covering 3 receivers. The Raiders took advantage of this by designing a route for Bowers that forced a switch between the cornerback and linebacker. By sending a second route to the inside, they created a one-on-one opportunity for Bowers in the middle of the field. This was a perfect example of offensive strategy, forcing a mismatch and allowing Bowers to make a spectacular catch. The play also highlighted O'Connell's growth. Post-snap, he recognized exactly what the defense was doing and put the ball in the perfect spot for Bowers. This is what the Raiders have been missing all season, a combination of solid play design and quarterback execution. If the Raiders had started the season with O'Connell and Turner working together from day one, they likely would have won more games up to this point. However, with the team sitting at 2-10, their focus has shifted to securing a high draft pick and looking ahead to the future. Still, these recent improvements are a glimpse of the potential this offense has moving forward. As the season progresses, even with the Raiders sitting at a disappointing record, there's still hope for a top 10 draft pick. However, one of the things I really wanted to see in this game was how Aiden O'Connell would run Scott Turner's offense, and he looked really good doing it. Now, I'm not one to shy away from criticism when it's deserved. Earlier in the season, I wasn't a fan of O'Connell. I had my doubts. I've been critical of him, and I've also been critical of other players like DJ Glaze. But here's the thing. When someone plays well, it's only fair to give them credit, and O'Connell earned that this game. I've always believed in giving credit where it's due. Even though O'Connell has had some struggles in the past, he had a solid performance in this game. He showed he could execute Scott Turner's offense efficiently. I'm not saying we shouldn't look for a potential future quarterback. Players like Cam Ward or Sanders are still worth considering. But why reach for someone when you might already have a guy in O'Connell who has a bit of upside? He still has some limitations, sure, which we'll talk about later, but when the offense is designed well, O'Connell is capable of hitting the plays that are there. Now, let's not forget about the defense. They played a huge part in this game, too. In the first 43 minutes, the Chiefs moved the ball downfield on 4 separate drives, but the Raiders' defense held them to field goals on 3 of those drives. That's a huge win, especially when you're facing a high-powered offense like Kansas City's. The Chiefs usually make you pay for mistakes and red zone opportunities, but the Raiders' defense bent but didn't break. Despite being down 3-6 late in the third quarter, the Raiders stayed true to their game plan, trusting in their shot plays. Then, in a quick flurry of action, everything clicked. In just 3 plays, the Raiders scored 14 points. First, Aiden O'Connell hit Brock Bowers for a 33-yard pass with a little under 2 minutes left in the third quarter. The momentum swung, and the very next play, rookie running back Sincere McCormick made an 11-yard run, setting up the next big play. O'Connell followed it up with a beautiful 58-yard touchdown pass to Trey Tucker, and just like that, the game was flipped. The Bowers touchdown was well-designed, using the Chiefs' cover 4-match defense to their advantage. The Raiders had anticipated that coverage, and it worked to perfection. With the right routes and timing, Bowers found himself in a one-on-one matchup, and O'Connell delivered the ball perfectly. That's what we've been missing all season: great play design and execution. O'Connell's trust in the system, combined with his growing confidence, made that touchdown happen. The 58-yard touchdown to Tucker was a pure display of O'Connell's arm strength and poise. It was a deep shot that required confidence in the scheme and the ability to make an accurate throw under pressure. This is the kind of quarterback play that can take the Raiders' offense to the next level, and it's moments like this that show just how much potential O'Connell has when everything is clicking. While there's still plenty of room for growth, this performance was an encouraging sign for the future. In my opinion, one of the standout moments in this game was how Aiden O'Connell handled the deep throws. If you're a quarterback and you see the defensive setup, you're usually not going to throw the ball over the top. But O'Connell did exactly that, showing a level of trust in his read and in the design of the offense. On a key play to Brock Bowers, O'Connell saw that the defense had a wide receiver running an out route and another breaking inside. This helped hold the safety in place, allowing O'Connell to place the ball perfectly where Bowers could make a play. It's not always easy to trust that the post safety and cornerback won't make a play on the ball, but O'Connell trusted what he saw pre-snap and knew that the offensive design would open up the opportunity for a big gain. The 33-yard pass to Bowers was a great example of a well-executed play, and it showed O'Connell's growing confidence in his reads. But the 58-yard touchdown pass to Trey Tucker was on another level. This play was all about O'Connell's poise under pressure. With the pocket breaking down, O'Connell stood firm, and before Tucker even fully beat his cornerback, put the ball out in front of him. Tucker was able to adjust and catch the ball, and O'Connell took the hit. That throw was a thing of beauty. Timing, precision, and trust in his receiver all came together in that moment. It was a play that showed how far O'Connell has come in running Scott Turner's offense. Even though the Raiders didn't win the game, watching the tape shows a significant improvement in their execution and overall offensive design. Another crucial part of the offense looking better in this game was the running game. Sincere McCormick and Amir Abdullah both had some really solid runs. Abdullah, in particular, averaged nearly 4 yards per carry, and together, the two backs averaged around 4.7 yards per attempt. They combined for over 100 yards on just 20 carries, showing that even with limited touches, they were effective in gaining yardage. It's important to note that while the Raiders aren't traditionally a run-first team, their ground game has been improving over the past few weeks. This improvement is largely due to the offensive line finally coming together. The offensive line is definitely the strongest it's been all season. Moving Jackson Parham to center has been a smart move, and he's been solid for the team. While I'm not fully sold on Dylan Parham as a guard, he's been serviceable, and that position could always be upgraded if needed. Jordan Myris has also been a steady performer, and while the left tackle position is strong, there's always room for improvement across the line. DJ Glaze, the rookie right tackle, has had a solid stretch of games despite some struggles against the Chiefs. Overall, this is the best offensive line unit the Raiders have had in years, and it's made a big difference in both the running and passing game. A big part of the improved running game has been the shift toward more power-based concepts. Power blocking schemes are often easier to execute than zone schemes, which require more communication and precise timing. With power, the focus is on creating a push up front, and the Raiders have done a better job of executing this type of run blocking. This approach has allowed them to have more success on the ground, which in turn opens up opportunities for the passing game to thrive. It's clear that the offensive line's improvement is a big reason for the team's offensive resurgence. While there's still work to be done, the progress in the running game and offensive execution has been encouraging for the future. The success of the Raiders' running game is not only dependent on the offensive line, but also on the vision and quickness of the running backs. For power running, the lanes are usually tighter, and the running back needs to be able to quickly pick a gap and hit it hard. It's about making one or two decisive moves, often in quick succession, to exploit the available space. In contrast, zone running gives a back more room to work with. There are wider gaps between tackles, and the running back has more freedom to cut back and read the defense. Either way, the Raiders are finding success in both areas, and that balance is helping their offense improve overall. What's also been encouraging is Aiden O'Connell's performance as the quarterback. After watching his play, I'm eager to see how he handles the upcoming games against the Buccaneers and Falcons. Divisional games can be tricky, and although the Chiefs are one of the best teams in the NFL, the Raiders almost pulled off a win against them. We saw last season that the Raiders are capable of surprising teams like the Chiefs, even when they're at their best. Now, with O'Connell at the helm, it'll be interesting to see how he continues to develop. That said, O'Connell is still not without his limitations. He's not the fastest quarterback, and that shows in certain situations. For instance, there was a play where Chris Jones, a defensive tackle, chased him down and sacked him. No quarterback should be caught by a defensive tackle in that way, and it's a limitation O'Connell will always face. The good news is that this can be mitigated with smart offensive design. If the offensive scheme is on point, O'Connell can still be effective. It's crucial for the Raiders to mix things up and keep the defense honest. If they fall into predictable patterns and the defense figures out the tendencies, O'Connell won't have as much success. But when the Raiders run creative plays like end-arounds with players like Brock Bowers or Trey Tucker and mix in screen passes, it makes a big difference. Scott Turner, the offensive coordinator, has done a solid job designing plays that keep the defense on its toes. In fact, the offense has looked better over the past few games as Turner adjusts to his personnel. We saw improvements in the third game that were especially encouraging. As the season goes on, the hope is that the Raiders can continue to build on that momentum. Comparing O'Connell to other quarterbacks, some on Twitter have pointed out that he has a similar limitation to Tua Tagovailoa. Both are less mobile and can't always make plays with their legs when the pocket breaks down. It's true that O'Connell, like Tua, is limited in that sense. When a defense takes away the quick, short passes, O'Connell might struggle to create plays with his feet. That's something the Raiders will need to work around, making sure they give him enough time in the pocket and rely on good play designs to make up for that lack of mobility. Despite these limitations, however, O'Connell has the potential to be effective. As long as the offense is running smoothly and the game plan keeps him in favorable situations. One of the mistakes Aiden O'Connell made in this game was taking a 15-yard sack while the Raiders were on the 22-yard line, which ultimately knocked them out of field goal range. It was a frustrating moment, especially since the Raiders later missed the field goal attempt. But to me, this was a rookie mistake. Despite O'Connell not being a rookie, it was still a rookie-like error that he'll likely learn from. A veteran quarterback shouldn't make that mistake again, and it's something he'll probably be coached out of. I don't expect to see him take another 15-yard sack on third down in the future. It's small, correctable issues like this that show where O'Connell can still improve, and over time, these mistakes should disappear. Another issue that stood out was his passing accuracy. There was a pass to Jacoby Myers running a dig route that was off target, too far to the left. Maybe the ball slipped out of his hand, or maybe it was just an accuracy issue, but the throw wasn't where it needed to be. He also underthrew Myers on a 43-yard pass, which could have easily turned into a touchdown if placed better. A little more air under the ball would have allowed Myers to run into the end zone, instead of having to adjust to make the catch. These are the types of throws that O'Connell will need to clean up. It takes time for a quarterback to get those details right, and some take longer than others. We've seen other quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen struggle early in their careers and eventually turn into stars. With O'Connell, we'll have to wait and see if he can make similar progress. Now, turning to the defense, the Raiders' secondary deserves a lot of credit. While they have some talented players, it's really the scheme that stands out. Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator, runs an elite defensive system that makes the entire secondary look much stronger. The Raiders have one of the best secondaries in the NFL, not necessarily because they have the most famous players, but because of how well they execute their scheme. We saw this in the game against the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, would look to his left and think he knew what to expect, only for the Raiders to completely flip the coverage. This kind of chess match is what sets the Raiders apart. There was one particular play that stands out. It was a third down situation where the slot corner, I believe it was Cameron Richardson, gave away the fact that a blitz was coming. Mahomes might not have seen it, but the Raiders executed a beautiful design. The defense looked like they were setting up for a 4-on-3 situation, which is a classic match concept, but then the Raiders sent the blitz from the other side. Robert Spillane also simulated pressure before dropping back into coverage, and while the blitz didn't get home, it still confused Mahomes and forced him to hesitate. He wasn't sure where to go with the ball. It's a reminder that in the NFL, it's not as simple as pressing a button in a video game like Madden. When a quarterback is under pressure, he can't just pivot and throw wherever he wants. He has to read the defense, and the Raiders' scheme does an excellent job of making things difficult for opposing quarterbacks like Mahomes. In the NFL, quarterbacks have to process information quickly, much faster than in college or high school. When a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes looks to the right and sees an opening, by the time he processes that information and attempts to make a throw, he's often already under pressure. In the case of the Raiders' defense, they've been able to capitalize on this by disguising coverage and forcing Mahomes into situations where he has to make quick decisions, sometimes with less time than he expects. We've seen it in the past where Mahomes struggles a bit against the Raiders' defensive scheme, and this game was no different. The Raiders had their moments where they should have come out on top, but penalties ended up playing a major role in the outcome. One key moment was the pass interference call against Jack Jones, which many felt was a bad call. It led to a touchdown for the Chiefs, and in my opinion, it shouldn't have been called. The call was questionable, and while I'm trying to be unbiased, it seemed like a poor decision. On the other hand, the second pass interference, which did result in a field goal attempt, was more understandable. The first penalty, however, definitely shifted momentum and gave the Chiefs an advantage they might not have earned. There were also other questionable penalties, like the one on Jackson Park-Johnson for holding. Johnson had made a physical play, tossing a defensive lineman to the ground, but they called it a hold, which to me didn't seem like a penalty. The physicality was part of the game, and this call was another example of a bad decision. These penalties, especially the ones leading to touchdowns or field goals, ultimately hurt the Raiders' chances in this game. Towards the end of the game, there was the controversial play where the Raiders fumbled the ball, and the officiating crew seemed to get it wrong. On the final play, the referee at the top of the field made a hand signal that indicated a false start. This signal should have blown the play dead, but for some reason, it was called an illegal shift instead, which doesn't match the official's motion. A false start automatically results in a dead ball, and players can't be in the middle of a play with a whistle blown. The whistle should have been blown earlier, which would have prevented the chaotic ending. The fact that players weren't scrambling for the football after the fumble may indicate that everyone heard the whistle, leading to an unfair conclusion to that play. To me, these officiating mistakes were a huge part of the Raiders' loss. They should have won this game. The defense played well, especially with the secondary, and there were some bright spots on offense with Aiden O'Connell and the running backs. But these penalties and missed calls definitely contributed to the final outcome, and it's frustrating to watch when you feel like your team did enough to win. At the end of the day, while the Raiders were competitive, those crucial moments and the officiating decisions had a significant impact on the game. In the final moments of the game, the decision-making process was highly questionable, especially on the Raiders' end. Antonio Pierce apparently wanted to waste a few seconds by throwing the ball into the stands, but I strongly disagree with this mindset. Instead of trying to run out the clock, it would have made far more sense to throw a quick 4 to 5 yard slant, pick up the first down, and spike the ball. That way, you'd still have time to set up for a better field goal attempt. In my view, that would have given the team a much better chance to tie or win the game. Trying to waste clock with a throwaway might seem like a strategy, but it left them in a tough spot, especially with a field goal that was already quite a distance, around 48 or 49 yards. Despite the rough ending, I walked away from the game with a lot of hope for the future. There were so many positive takeaways from the performance, especially the way the Raiders showed growth and promise, particularly on offense. The Raiders' offense had some flashes of brilliance under Scott Turner, and the defense, as usual, made key stops when needed. There's a lot to build on moving forward. As for the coaching staff, it's still uncertain whether Antonio Pierce will stay on as head coach, but I think there's enough potential to be hopeful. One thing that's clear is that Scott Turner has done a solid job with the offense. If he's kept on as the offensive coordinator, I believe he'll continue to improve the system. In the offseason, he'll likely refine his approach, incorporating designs and plays from other successful teams. Just as Ben Johnson revamped the Lions' offense, Turner can do the same for the Raiders, making necessary tweaks and adjustments to take the offense to the next level. That being said, the coaching situation is still up in the air. It's not guaranteed that Pierce will be let go or that the Raiders will land a top-tier offensive coordinator, but Turner is definitely someone who could develop into a great fit for the team. The Raiders need to stay focused on building this program, and hopefully they'll make the right moves in the offseason. As for now, I'm optimistic about the Raiders' future, and I hope they continue to improve week after week. In any case, I enjoyed this game, even if the ending wasn't ideal, because I saw a lot of upside and potential. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time with more analysis.